Thanks, Cathaoirleach. Well, with the impending general election, I suppose yesterday the long-suffering Irish people finally got some respite from the implacable austerity enforced on us since late 2008. In my own submission a few weeks ago to Ministers Noonan and Howlin, I again called for many of the more positive social expenditure measures that were included in the government's final budget, in this government's final budget in office, among those which it would be churlish, Minister, not to acknowledge are the extension of the early childhood care and education scheme from age 3 years and 2 months up to primary school entry, the restoration of the respite care grant to €1,700, the increase of the fuel allowance to €22.50, the partial restoration of child benefit by €5, and the investment in education to slightly reduce the PTR, the pupil-teacher ratio, from 27 to 1 for primary to 27 to 1 for primary and 18.7 to 1 for second-level students. But senior constituents, Minister, whom I met in Dublin Bay North with your colleague Minister Reardon this morning, they were not greatly enthused by the €3 per week increase in pensions, even if it's the first rise since 2009. But of course, Cathaoirleach, these partial restorations of levels of benefit and income for the most vulnerable, after 7 years of brutal austerity, they can't undo the damage, Minister, that's been done to all those countless households and all our citizens. The biggest disappointment of Budget 2016, as my colleague Deputy Shortall said, is the government's failure to declare a housing emergency, and particularly the failure, unfortunately, Minister, of the Labour Party. The plan for NAMA to deliver 20,000 housing units by the end of 2020, with 90% delivered in Dublin, is simply a rerun of the old failed developer-led system. Ministers plan to give the responsibility for the urgent building of tens of thousands of homes to developers who built so many substandard fire traps up to 2009 and sat in their land banks ever since, while they emerged from bankruptcy, supported of course by us and by the taxpayers and by NAMA, and covering up for their reckless failures, those builders' reckless failures. The paltry increase of 20 million, which was allocated yesterday to ensure 3,000 social housing units are delivered by 2016, it'll assist with perhaps less than 3% of indeed of the citizens and households who are desperately waiting on housing waiting lists. And the increase of 69 million for social housing is also paltry when the actual social housing budget of €414 million remains less than a quarter or a fifth of what's truly needed. And we heard nothing of rent certainty yesterday, Minister. The Taoiseach is saying it's all decided, but I mean, why wasn't this the most critical issue included in the budget? Minister Howlin declared yesterday that the overall budget for health is restored back to pre-crash levels of over 13 billion, Cathaoirleach, but he was immediately concentrated by the Minister who just went out, Minister Varadkar, who rightly said, and I hardly ever agree with Minister Varadkar, Cathaoirleach, but he rightly said, of course, that the health budget is at least £1 billion off the pre-crash levels, and that's just in nominal terms. And of course the Department's budget has been decimated, the Department of Health's budget during the austerity years, and while the spend is £13.2 billion, how much has been lost cumulatively since 2008, and how do you quantify the suffering of patients on waiting lists in chaotic A&Es and the desperately hard-pressed staff trying to care for them? And there wasn't a mention in any of the current or capital budgets, Cathaoirleach, about the urgently needed new A&E and newly resourced A&E for Beaumont Hospital. And of course, as another colleague said, Deputy Timmins behind me, nothing at all about the elephant in the room, which of course is Irish water, and citizens want to know how much more of our taxpayers' money will be pumped into this direly malfunctioning utility. The ferocious vice grip, of course, of the EU expenditure rules was again evident in Taoiseach de Burton's Social Protection 2016 budget, where she's basically kept a cap on social protection spending at under 19 billion, and even increases for this year are based on increases in the social insurance fund. I put forward options, Cathaoirleach, in my own budget submission to gain significant yields for the Exchequer from fair additional taxation, but of course the proposals, I suppose they ended up in Minister Noonan's bottom drawer with other proposals from this side of the House. I suggested a 48% rate of tax on incomes over 100,000, a financial transaction tax starting with an increase in stamp duty, a solidarity and reparations tax on financial institutions, and of course a fully effective 12.5% corporation tax. Deputy Shortall a few weeks ago raised this issue of having a real 12.5% corporation tax and the additional revenue that it could bring us. In his conclusion yesterday, Minister Howlin asked, who speaks of Syriza now? This incredible hubris, Cathaoirleach, was apparently prompted by the crushing euro restructuring settlement imposed on Alex Tsipras and his government by Chancellor Merkel and company. But there's one huge difference between Alex Tsipras' government ministers and the government of Enda Kenny, and the Greek people recognised this just the other week when they re-elected Syriza. The difference is that at least Syriza, they tried. Syriza tried. They tried to renegotiate with the Eurogroup. This outgoing government, you never even tried. You never even tried. And your failure will be recognised by a massive loss of seats after Christmas. Thanks, Cathaoirleach.
Deputy Matthews, you have 4 minutes and 40 seconds.